Alright, so here's something that'll help you make a decision. The surface here is really wide. The outside diameter is right around 1 inch. The inside is about 5/8, and there's a tall lip on here. That's not for the gasket. That's for the wall thickness of these holes in the plastic. So there is, just like this, this plastic one I showed you a second ago, there's a gap here with no threads on it. See that? If you can see that against the paper towel. That's where the gasket ends up going. The plastic fills this up, and your gasket sits right in there. So that's where you want to fit your gasket to when you're doing inside diameters, is make sure it fits kind of snug to that. Let's try one of these here. Yeah, this is one of the early ones, that's why it's loose. So this isn't, I wouldn't pick this. It needs to be tighter to the inside diameter. Now, if it's not real snug, that's okay. And the reason on that particular application it's okay is the width of the shelf here. And the wall around this, the wall of the plastic tank will sit infinitely big. So if it's not perfect, you got a lot of surface area to seal. So it's not a big deal. I like them a little snug because I think that's how they need to be. So anyway, I need to cut me a couple of these that are a little snug, a little more snug, and then lay the tank in here. I just took some cheap Chinese Scotch-Brite and very gently cleaned off the material on the outside. The outside gets a washer for both locations. And then I did the inside too. It's impossible to see that, but oops, yeah. The inside right in here, I just lightly cleaned it, get the crap off, so that's where the O-ring is going to seat. You don't want dirt under the O-ring. So anyway, there's 2 washers for the outside, and then the nuts and stuff. You don't want to refund these. You want to snug them down and tighten them until it looks like on the inside you'll see it's compressing. You want to see it compress nicely and then stop compressing. And that's what I plan on doing with this. So right now I don't want to lose my samples here. Alright, so I need to go make a couple of these inner guys, these inside guys, out of this stuff and see how I feel about it. I'm going to have to shrink the ID a little bit. This inner hole is just a tiny bit too big. It's nice to have it sealed because when you start squeezing it, the rubber is naturally going to want to squeeze out from all that pressure. And so if you have it tight against the inside, it won't be able to move out as much. So that'll help it seal. Alright, anyway, I'm going to go finish this up, and another time I will show the assembly of this bad boy, of the header tank here itself, and we'll call it good because I want to get this Jeep running again. See you, bye. Alright, so I cut a fresh one of these. And it fits real good on the inside, and it's pretty darn even. So this one will get used. What I used for the outside diameter to cut that was a 7/8 socket, 1/2 inch drive. Doesn't matter, whatever the outside diameter is all that matters. The inside diameter that fits a little tight is 10 millimeter. Now, when you compress this, it changes the dimension a little bit, but this all fits nice and snug, so when I put it on the transmission cooler, it'll do real well. So anyway, this one's done. Now let me show you for the bigger one. This big one, you got, what is this socket here? 1 1/8 for the outside diameter, and for the inside diameter, and that's a 1/2 inch drive, deep socket. This is a 13/16 3/8 drive for the inside diameter. Use whatever you got. You can use, probably using washers, flat washers and stuff might work even easier because then you can see the inside better. Because you see this one's thicker on one side and the other. It's because I'm blind. I'm doing it blind. Except for these marks. This helps a lot. So anyway, alright, back to the assembly table. Alright, so here's my freshly made silicone unit. This black one's a little different size. It was an early prototype, so those aren't going to get used. But this one, I'll show you. You slide it over the threads. It's tight, but it'll stretch right over. And you just gently pull on it until it gets down in that groove. Okay, let's see if I can get the light on this. You see it's kind of tight by the way it's staying fixed up or down. It fits right in that groove perfectly. And then when you slide this all together, you slide it in the tank and crank it all down. So let's try that. Hang on a sec. Alright, let's see. So we take the other one I got, slide it down into the tank. No, yeah. Wait a minute, is that right? That is right. So I told you something wrong here, and that is, it looks like the gasket does go all the way down to that flat area at the bottom. It does in fact. So this has to stretch over that, which actually isn't a big deal. These, the black ones or the red ones will stretch over it fine. Okay. Yeah, sorry man, when you have a headache for almost 3 weeks, you can't think worth a shit. Okay, so let's pull this one down. Come on, baby. So this probably should be a little bigger, but I think it's going to fit just fine. Yeah, that is a little bit tight, I have to say. But okay, once you pull it down, yeah, it doesn't want to stay too well. See how it's flexing up and stuff? Because it's pulled so tight. So if I had to do this again, yes, I would make it a little bigger, just a tiny bit. But once it's on that, that bottom step, take a look at this one here. It's at the very bottom against that shelf right here. And this one will be as well. There we go. So then you slide this very carefully. So this one up here is going to be the problem child. So I'm put it in as straight as possible. Pull it up tight, wiggle it some so that it's not getting pinched. And from my vantage point, that's perfect. So then you take the, man, that washer needs to get cleaned first. We'll do the other end here. Hold it tight with your finger, push it toward the mounting surface, drop this washer on right here. This is the larger one, so this big old dirty nut goes on here. Just bring it up finger tight. Just finger tight. And then take this other one and wiggle it around and make sure it's tight. Yeah, I think it's all right in there. Okay. That washer is really cruddy. Okay. Like that. And the nut for that is right here. And then you need to shine a flashlight in there, which my flashlights are in the house today. Huh. I do see a little bit of a gap. Part of the problem is you can see this tank's warped. This is normal. This is made of nylon, glass filled. When you take them apart and they cool off, they shrink a little in here. The other one's exactly the same way. So it's not exactly parallel. This tank, the two surfaces are flat to each other, but this thing's curved, so I can see it's not quite. I'll bet these tanks weren't warped like this when they were new. Alright, so you get yourself a wrench or whatever, And you got to be gentle with them, man. You can't reef this thing. So I loosely have my hand on toward the inside here, so I don't have a lot of leverage, and then it gets snug all of a sudden. Oh yeah, that looks almost perfect. Not perfect, but awful close. Let me do this one too. Okay, they're barely snug. I need to give them just a little bit more. Boy. Let me go get a flashlight. I'll be right back. Okay, so hopefully this will make it better to see. That gasket's got just a tiny bit of compression because I haven't really tightened it on the nut outside. Let's see if I can show you the other one better. It's got some compression, but on this side over here on the outside, you can see a tiny gap between the brass and the outer edge of the gasket. So when you put all this back, when this gets attached again to the tank, it'll expand all these sides out and make that straight. But you need enough torque on there. You know what I think I'll do is I'm not going to reef this until I put it on the radiator. Yeah, that's a better idea. Because this, see how these walls are kind of pulled in toward each other? They won't be pulled in once you bolt it, when you crimp it back onto the radiator. That'll make that gap go away, and that'll be the proper time to torque this a little better. I don't know that there's a torque spec, but that's what needs to happen. So anyway, it's basically reassembled. I see a little crack in from the process of making it, but that's okay. Alright, so that one's 062 thick. This one that I purchased from All Radiator in Southern California, it's 074. Yeah, 12 thousandths, not a big deal. I think this is higher quality. This will probably last longer. Although, they probably started leaking well before they became 30 years old. But anyway, this needs to get put on the tank, which is a whole other video, because you have to clamp it and all kinds of stuff. Sorry the light's not worth a damn. But there's basically an assembled tank, late model, that has a radiator cap opening on it, which will bring this thing kicking and screaming into the early 90s. Alright, that's it for today, man. I'm beat. See you, bye. Alright, one last detail. This is the good one. That one's got a slice in it, so this is the good one. You just stretch it on gently, don't overstretch it. And this one's also 062, or what they call 1/16. And this one goes down in that groove I was telling you about earlier. So this one does go down in that groove, and this is going in for real here. Okay, I wish I could tell you what size Allen wrench this is. This thing's a monster. Criminy, I can't read it. Well, anyway, it fits. It's the biggest Allen wrench on the metric set of Bondus drivers. So there you go. Oops, we're not going to reef on it. Okay, so this can be taken off and replaced if I don't like it. So I'm holding it from the small end, giving it a little bit of torque, and I don't know if it's squeezed out much, but it's in nice and tight, and that's some good quality stuff. So you let it stick out a little bit. The original did too, less than this, but it was original gasket, which we don't know what that material is. So, okay, now this is done. Before I bolt it on, I'm going to blow the coolant, transmission cooler out. There's a little bit of transmission fluid in the bottom here. You might be able to see it. So I need to clean this out too, but I'm going to blow it out, make sure it's clean, and see if it has any restriction using about 20 psi. Because sometimes these things get plugged with crap from the transmission bands and clutches, and not good. So, alright, man. We're almost there. We're getting there. Woohoo! See you, bye.